Hello everyone, all 22 and a few film review, giving you guys the next episode of Draft Wraps, my draft class analysis series where we dive deep into every class, letting you guys know how I feel about every pick, depending on where they were taken in relation to my big board, who's left on the board at the position they were taken, is it a position of need, the scheme fit they're going to. We have projections for starting, projections for immediate roles, all that good stuff, grades. So if you want to know more about the Jets class or about any of the other 31 classes, make sure you stick around as we get through all 32 teams. It's going to be a lot of videos coming out, a lot of analysis coming through, so make sure you stick around. If you have any questions about anything you're seeing up on the screen, my grading scale, where I get my information from, everything is going to be in the description. So if you have any questions, take a look over there. And if it's not, come scream at me in the comments so I can make sure I get it in there. Without further ado, let's get into the Jets class tier. My 26th overall class. The Jets got a true B for me, graded at a 2.9825 from the equation that I made, or the formula that I made for these classes. That way you guys could have a more concrete feel about every class, especially the ones that share the same letter grade, so you can see how close I have them graded, how they're stacked. Just kind of more of a fun ranking system that we can come back to later, see how we did. But it's more about the analysis, more about the grades. Let's hop into their whole class here. They take Armand Membou, their first pick, a right tackle out of Mizzou, then Mason Taylor, a tight end out of LSU, Azariah Thomas, a cornerback out of Florida State, Arian Smith, a wide receiver out of Georgia, Malachi Moore, a safety out of Alabama, Francisco Malagoa, a linebacker out of Miami, and Tyler Barron, an edge out of Miami. Like I said, overall, they got a B for me. This was a very, very, very solid class. I like basically all the bodies they got in this room. A little bit of question on value with some of them, but I think almost everyone in this class, if not everyone, is going to come in and at least have a role or going to compete for snaps immediately. So I really like that from this class. Let's start off with Armand Membou, their first pick, taken at number 7, no trade compensation. Also, as we get into these letter grades, remember that these grades are much more than just how I feel about the player. I'm giving Armand Membou an A+. That's not just about how much I like Armand Membou. There's everything goes in this pick, or everything goes in these grades as far as the big board, like I said, where they were taken. There's trade compensation if they traded up or traded down. The value of what they got in the trade is going to be factored in. If they should have gone somewhere else positionally, or if there was much more better positions on the board, if I think they're reaching a little bit, all of that is going into the grade. It's not just about how I feel about the player. Let's keep talking about Armand Membou here. He was my 3rd ranked player in this class. I was an absolute Armand Membou truther throughout this whole process. Love Armand Membou. I started getting an introduction to him when I was watching all these edges. I watched basically almost all the edges I watched for this class first, and a lot of them came from the SEC, so a ton of them are playing Armand Membou, and I was just watching this guy swallow every single person he went up against. Was like, man, this guy is insane. I think I like his technique a little bit better than Will Campbell's. And then he goes out, tests like an absolute freak. You see the 9.89 RAS, one of the only over 300-pound players in combine history to run a sub 540. Had good testing numbers, had good numbers on the bench, looked strong on tape. Love the measurables for him. Even though he's 6'4", 332, you might think, oh, he's a little bit shorter for a tackle. It's great. It plays into his game because when you're a little bit shorter and you still have good arm length, he has 33.5-inch arms, which is way more than playable at tackle. You play with a lot more natural leverage. You're lower to the ground. When you're sitting in your stance, you're lower to the ground. You have a lower center of gravity. You're harder to get pushed back, especially with those arms. You're able to keep your leverage on bigger guys, and it's harder for them to get onto you and reach onto you when they're going at a downward angle with their arms. Plays really well to his game. Still 330, so he's super, super thick. Just built like an absolute brick house, and he moves incredibly well. Absolute Armand Membou truther. I gave this an A+, not only because he was 3rd on my big board and in a class where not a lot of the top teams 100% needed tackle, you were able to get this guy to fall to you at 7. I think it's great value. He was my number 1 tackle on the board. Will Campbell gets taken at 4, which I prefer the Patriots to do over Armand Membou just because Will Campbell's already accustomed to playing that left side, which I think he's going to do for them. And Armand Membou, even though I think he is a better overall tackle prospect and I like him better as a player, the transition from one side of tackle to the other side of tackle is not just a set in stone, like, oh yeah, he's going from right to left and he's going to be fine. It's a very difficult transition. From someone who has played college football and has very, very good friends with some offensive linemen, I went to one of my offensive linemen's wedding. That guy had to transition from one side of tackle to the other, and he can attest that it is a very, very difficult move. You're retraining your entire drop step, which ways you're using your hands. I like them picking Will Campbell for that reason. Let's get back to Armand Membu. So it makes sense to me that he fell to 7. Love the value. Getting a right tackle for them was my number 1 overall need for them. You just had Morgan Moses leave. You didn't do anything to replace him in the offseason. Getting Armand Membu next to Olu Fashanu, absolutely beautiful. Those are your 2 bookend tackles for the next, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, however long, depending on if you are able to resign these guys to second contracts. Absolutely don't have to worry about your tackles. You just focus on your interior line, which honestly isn't in a terrible spot at all. So adding Armand Membu to this line immediately just makes it a very good group to me. Love this pick for them. On 411 snaps, he allowed 0 sacks, 0 hits, only 8 hurries on the season. Was a 2024 second-team SEC player and a 2-year starter for Mizzou. Only going to be 21 throughout the season, so one of the more younger players in this class. I love to see it. Again, A+. Absolutely love this pick for them. Their next pick, they go Mason Taylor, a tight end out of LSU with the 42nd pick, the 10th pick of the second round. No trade compensation for this one. I like this pick for them. Not the best value in my opinion. I wasn't as high on Mason Taylor as a lot of other people were. He was my 4th ranked tight end. But in terms of a true kind of someone you can mold into an inline Y, he was my best one on the board, so I like them taking him at the spot. He's definitely not falling to the 3rd. And if you trade back, he's might not be falling out of the 2nd. This was a type of guy that's going to go in the 2nd round, even if I didn't view him as a true 2nd round player. I also love him for the Jets because they need a vertical threat at the tight end position. You just lost Tyler Conklin. Jeremy Ruckert hasn't shown you a ton in terms of vertical threat ability. Mason Taylor, even if he isn't going to be a super dominant Y in terms of run blocking and being in line, he still adds such a, passing threat to this team that they absolutely need for the tight end position. So I think it's a great fit. I understand the value. He was the best, Y mold tight end left on the board. He has all the strength, or at least testing strength, to become a good run blocker. He's 6'5", 251, so he's not light. He put up 28 reps on the bench at the combine, so you see the raw testing strength. Just on the field, it didn't seem super translated. He would come into blocks with very high pad level. His hands were often very low and to the outside, meaning there was no power in his pop, and because he didn't have a lot of leverage, he wasn't getting a lot of drive. I just didn't love his run blocking tape. But again, has the size, has the raw testing strength to be able to become an inline blocker, just needs to translate that strength on the field, get his pad level down, get his hands more inside. And he can do that. Like I said, not out of his game, just I wasn't as high on him as other people for that reason, especially because I think he needs to work on his, hand contested catch consistency a little bit, like Colston Loveland, who we mentioned with the Bears in the previous video, but I think Colston Loveland is on a much higher tier than Mason Taylor is now. Someone that I think can be a very, very good player. He has all the athleticism, has the ball skills in terms of being able to make those, pirouettic, high-pointed catches. He can do it. Didn't love his separation, didn't love his route ability, didn't love his run blocking. That's why he kind of falls down to me. But still a good player. Like I said, if you wait to take him, you're not going to be able to get him. You need a true tight end right now, especially the one that could help you in the passing game. Fits their scheme well. Don't hate it at all. I gave it a B+, just because, like I said, 71 on my big board. Don't love the value a ton, but someone that I think is going to be a very good player for them down the line. Might not have a ton of production in year one. Justin Fields historically has not been great at targeting his tight ends. So if he doesn't have a ton of production and he doesn't, like not everyone, but some people don't think he is, that great of a tight end year one because of it, I wouldn't be 100% surprised. But if Justin Fields can, start to target him, if they bring in another quarterback next year or in 2 years, sees the middle of the field well and can hit a tight end, I really like it for them. I think it can be super good for them again. Just a little bit early in terms of true value for me, and that's why it gets a B+. Still not a bad grade at all, though. Like I said, 6'5", 251, going to be 21 at the start of the season and throughout the season. 8.89 RAS score. 55 receptions on 79 targets, 546 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 9.9 yard per catch total. Was a freshman All-SEC selection during his freshman year. Was a 2024 third-team SEC selection. Set the LSU single-season record for receptions in a season for the tight end position with 55 in this last year. So very, very productive in terms of how LSU uses their tight ends. This was a very fun player to watch, but very frustrating player to watch at times as well. I wasn't as high on him as other people. I still like it for this spot here. I think, like I said, if you wait, you're not going to get him. So B+ for me. Their next pick, they go Azariah Thomas, a cornerback out of Florida State with the 73rd pick, the 9th pick of the 3rd round. Again, no trade compensation here. I wasn't a big fan of this pick. 98 on my big board. Took him at 73, so about 25 spots early for me in terms of, true value. I think he was going to go somewhere in the 3rd, just based off of the length. He was being hyped up a lot in this process. I would have been much more comfortable with the late 3rd or a compensatory pick in the 3rd. Don't love it at the very, very top of the 3rd. I think if you want to go for the kind of press man mold corner that he is, Noah Williams would have been a much better pick for me. More athletic, kind of similar to better tape in my opinion. Justin Wally, maybe not the man, 100% the man corner you're looking for, but again, much more athletic. I thought he showed similar tape to Azariah Thomas. I liked him better. Azariah Thomas, to me, them bringing in Brandon Stephens on the contract they did and bringing in Azariah Thomas tells me they're trying to go into more of a press man mold, or at least kind of a more tight, soft man mold. They're going to be playing closer to the line of scrimmage, going to be getting their hands on the receivers a lot more. Brandon Stephens definitely a man-style corner. Sauce can really do whatever you need. And then Azariah Thomas, going to be more of a press man-style corner. Scares me, though. He ran a 4.58, and although 4.58 isn't totally unplayable at the corner position, being a press man corner running a 4.58 definitely scares me a lot, because he's not 100% nuanced in his press technique yet. This is a one-year starter. He needs a lot to work on marrying his feet with his hands when he's lunging, how to carry receivers through the press. And if a receiver, an NFL, athletic receiver, is able to get behind him in his press technique, then he's not going to be able to keep up with them. He's not going to be able to have the long speed, the foot speed. I think his foot speed is much better than his long speed, but his feet definitely can get clunky, especially in that press. So it definitely scares me that they're bringing him in this system with Brandon Stephens and with Sauce Gardner. I hope they don't lean on him an exceptional amount in year one, because I think it might be a rough transition for him. Again, has all the length, a very feisty player, very physical player. I like him, just this was a bit early for me. I think there was much more high upside guys and even better floor guys for them in this spot. I would have liked them to get a difference-making wide receiver in the spot. Kind of their top 3 needs were right tackle, tight end, and then getting a difference-making wide receiver. Behind that, it's kind of a tie of either getting an edge, getting a corner, getting an interior defensive lineman that can compete for snaps right now. Azariah Thomas is that. He is going to compete for snaps right now. You think of Sauce and Brandon Stephens on the outside. I think they're going to work Azariah as that next outside guy. He's going to have a lot of chance to compete and get some snaps on this season. So I don't hate them going corner in this spot, but man, at 73, there was a lot of difference-making wide receivers. There was a lot of difference-making edges. There was a lot of difference-making IDLs with either better floors or much higher ceilings than an Azariah Thomas. Again, don't hate it. I graded it a B because I still think it is a fit in terms of, where he's going. I think just because he doesn't have to play immediately in that 1 or 2 spot, that does help him out a bit. But I think there was better players. I think they could have went better positionally, so it is just a solid B for me. Again, number 98 on my big board was my 12th ranked corner, was my 8th off the board. So not great in terms of positional value for me. A 6'1" and a half-inch safety, 197. So full-sized corner. You really like to see that size, especially how he marries it with his physicality. Going to be 21 throughout the start of the season and throughout the whole season. So a younger player, 8.17 RAS, going to be held down a lot by that 4.58 40 and the 10-yard split. Not great. 1 interception, 4 PBUs, 50.2 pass rating allowed when targeted, 52 tackles, and 2 TFLs on the season. So solid ball protection, was a 2024 ACC honorable mention in his first year as a starter at Florida State. So not bad production for his first year in a starting role. You still think his best ball's ahead of him. But man, that athleticism on the outside just very, very limits his capability of what he can do. He's going to be much more of a matchup style corner. Probably not someone you leave as your 1 or 2 unless you can get his technique to a place where you're confident the speed won't be too much of a concern. A little bit of much more of a concern to me, though, personally. Again, a B, not a terrible pick. Arian Smith with the 110th pick, the 8th pick of the 4th round. We're going to be getting to my day 3 grades now, where we have a different grading scale. The day 1, day 2 grades are much more harshly graded for me in my equation. When you're going in those day 3s, it's much more about BPA and BPA for a need. You're seeing less reaches, you're seeing much more just picking up towards the top of the board or the top of these teams' respective boards. So they're going to be, and they're a lot more expected to have a starting role. You know, if you're drafted somewhere in the first, you're either expecting to start this year or start next year, and you're expecting to be a good starter very soon. In the second round, you might get into a starting role, but you're not expected to be that great in year 1. But down the line, they're going to expect you to be an average to an above average starter. In the third round, you're not going to be expected to start right away, but this is a team that's going to be molding you into a starting role eventually. They still have that vision for you. And once we get into day 3, if you get a starting player out of that, that's just cash money, but you're a lot more drafting for roles and aspects on your team. So your team has some slot options and some X's, but you ain't got no vertical threat ability. Your team might just draft a 6'3", 200-pound burner that runs a 4'3", because that's what your wide receiver room needs in order to keep secondaries honest and keep those safeties deep. Maybe you had a really lackluster running unit. You just need a 350-pound nose tackle to eat up some space for you. Those are the kind of fits that you're looking for in day 3. So it's a lot more lax grading scale. I love it, I like it, I see the vision, and I don't get it. I love it. I'm not going to dive super deep into the descriptions for these because they're all in the description. Go look up there. I'm not going to keep you guys here all day, but I love it. Great value, great fit, stuff like that. I like it. I see it, and I think it was about their value. I think they're going to compete soon. I see the vision, maybe not where I would have gone, but I could see where you're going to mold them in, or they might be competing for a spot right away. So I understand it, and then I don't get it. It's just you took them super, super, super early, even for the day 3. They might not make the roster. You maybe took them with an earlier day 3 pick, and they're going to be sitting behind a ton of bodies, kind of stuff like that. So different kind of grading scale for day 3, a little bit more lax grading scale for day 3. But let's hop into it. Arian Smith, a wide receiver out of Georgia, taken with pick 110, the 8th pick of the 4th round. No trade compensation for this one. I see the vision on this one. Arian Smith is an absolute burner, ran in the 4.3s, is 6 foot, flashed some solid route capability at the Senior Bowl. Now, one-on-ones are made for the receiver to win. It's super difficult to make a corner look good in one-on-one reps. But, he was showing some quickness in his routes. He was showing a lot of twitchiness. He was showing that he at least knew how to bend and stem. Sometimes it was getting a little bit too much. He was doing too much, but he flashed the ability. Someone that also ran a 4.36 is 6 foot. So the ceiling is absolutely there. The ceiling is absolutely, absolutely, absolutely there. But he is 6 foot 179, so he is extremely thin. Had 10 drops on the season, which is an absolutely abysmal drop percentage. And you saw it at the Senior Bowl too. This guy desperately needs to work on his hands. I thought this was more of a project to take at the back end of round 5 or round 6. This would be an I don't get it if they didn't need this type of guy in their room, but they just need people in their room that can compete at all, and they definitely need some deep burner ability. You got Garrett Wilson kind of be your C. He can go vertical at times, but you want him working all over the field and scheming him up. You don't want him just use him as your go guy. You have Alan Lazard there, who's more of an X type. You're probably looking to move on from him sooner or later to get rid of the kind of Aaron Rodgers era there. You have Malachi Corley, who's definitely got some juice, but much more of a slot type. Xavier Gibson, much more of a returning type. They brought in Tyler Johnson, who's kind of a burner, which kind of makes me question this pick a little bit. But again, I get it. I don't hate it at all. It's not like Tyler Johnson's your long-term option or anything. And it's not like you're expecting Arian Smith to be an absolute dominant receiver in year one either. So I don't hate it. I see the vision. There was better overall receivers, in my opinion, much better overall receivers at this spot. In terms of getting a deep threat, I probably would have went with Keandre Lambert-Smith, but outside of that, can't really argue that I would definitively go one guy over another. So I see the vision with it, just don't love it. Is going to be 24 through the middle of the season, put up a 9.2 RAS. Like I said, absolute burner, but that RAS is going to be held down by the fact that he is 179. He's a very thin 6-foot receiver. Had 48 receptions on 72 targets, 817 yards, 4 touchdowns, 17 yards per catch, which is absolutely exceptional. That's why they're bringing this guy in. Those explosive chunk plays that he can bring. Had 1 year starting at Georgia. Very, very much older player. He spent a lot of time kind of more active on the track squad. He was a part of a record-setting 4x1 at Georgia. They set their school record for the 4x1 relay. So absolute burner, track background. He's going to be a deep threat for this team. Don't know if he's going to be too much else, but again, this was early for me, even if you're getting him as a deep threat. But I see the vision. I don't absolutely hate it. If he hits his upside, this guy can be dominant. Malachi Moore, their next pick 130, pick 28 of the 4th round. They got this from a trade up with the Eagles. They sent 145 and 207 over the Eagles to get 130. So you're moving up 15 spots, and you're giving up a 6th rounder to do it. So I don't hate it at all, especially considering that I wanted them to target safety at some point in this class. Again, like I said, I wanted to go IDL or edge as well, but considering you have Tony Adams, you have Andre Sisco. You brought Andre Sisco in on a 1-year deal. I like Andre Sisco a lot. I think he plays into a bigger contract. But since he's on a 1-year deal with you, he might play into a bigger contract somewhere else. I really wanted them to bring in more safety depth. I like this for them a lot. I think this was about Malachi Moore's range, kind of the back end of the 4th, early end of the 5th. Not a super athletic guy, but a 4-year starter at Alabama, was a freshman All-SEC selection, a second-team All-American in 2024, and a first-team SEC selection, not a 4-year starter, but started in 2021, 2023, and 2024. Started their first 11 games as a true freshman before getting injured in his freshman year. So this guy with a ton of experience and a very, very good defense, very, very smart player. Again, not super athletic, but he's athletic enough to play at safety, especially with the instincts. Like I said in previous videos, you can get by with less athletic safeties if they're smart and instinctual. The perfect example of this is Kyle Hamilton. Wasn't a great tester. I'm not saying Kyle Hamilton's unathletic, but a lot of people had a lot of concerns about his ability to play true deep middle because he ran a 4.6. But he's such a smart player. He triggers so well, and he sees things so well that it doesn't matter. He just gets to the ball in time. He takes proper angles. He knows when to go. I'm not saying Malachi Moore is Kyle Hamilton, but this is a very smart player that I think is going to be able to outplay their lack of overwhelming athleticism. A 5'11", 196, 5'11", 196 pound safety, 23.6, going to be 24 throughout the later part of the season. So a little bit of an older prospect, but again, a lot of experience and a very good system. It's going to transition very well to their team, I believe. He's not going to be expected to be a starting safety right away. I like that for him. I think he's going to be a very, very nice rotational safety for them. 6.1 RAS, like I said, 2 interceptions, 8 PBUs on the season, 70 tackles, 3 TFLs, 2 forced fumbles, 1 sack, only 5 missed tackles. You love to see that on 70 tackles. Again, I like this pick. Thought it was about their range. I wanted them to go safety at some point in this class. I think this was a good time to do it. I like this a lot for them. Their next pick, the 162nd pick, the 26th pick of the 5th round. They got this from the Mike Williams trade. Part of the trade value for bringing Mike Williams over from the Chargers all those years ago. I like this pick for them. Honestly, I think Francisco Malagoa probably went a lot earlier in this class if it wasn't for the drop in missed tackles in this season. More of a full-sized linebacker, according to NFL standards today, at 6'2", 233, only a 22-year-old prospect. Put up a 9.14 RAS. Not the fastest vertical straight line guy, but very nice at acceleration, good at moving laterally, good change of direction, very solid type mover guy. 96 tackles, 11 TFLs, 1 interception, 1 forced fumble, 5 PBUs, 1 sack. So you like the production. 18 missed tackles on this season. Now, apparently he was playing through an injury this season. That can factor in a little bit to this. In his previous 3 seasons playing, 1 at Miami and 2 at Washington State, he only had 21 missed tackles combined through those 3 seasons. So he was a very, very secure tackler previously in his career. Don't know why that number shot up so much in this season. I think that's part of the reason why he fell. But this is a more full-sized NFL linebacker for today's standards. Very athletic guy. You're getting him at the very back end of the 5th after there was a fat run of linebackers, so there's not a ton of linebackers on the board. I think he's going to come in and immediately compete for that linebacker 3 or 4 spot. So I think he's going to compete for a decent amount of snaps this season. Even if he doesn't win that job, I think he is going to compete for a solid amount of snaps this season. So I think it's solid value. I think he's immediately going to come in and compete. Love it for them, and I like it pick. The missed tackles are a little bit concerning, but again, someone this athletic, this sized, when size is starting to dramatically fall off at linebacker in the NFL, I like it. A 2-time second-team ACC selection at 2 years at Miami. Like I said previously, spent his previous 2 years at Washington State before transferring over to Miami to play with his brother, who's a tackle, Francis Mauigoa, who we're going to see in the draft most likely next year. And then with their next pick, another Miami player, they go Tyler Barron, an edge, the 176th pick 40 of the 5th round. They got this as part of a trade down with the Ravens, part of a trade up with the Ravens, sending over 186, a 2026 5th, and in turn getting 176 from the Ravens and a 2026 6th. So you're moving up 10 spots in this class, and you're basically sending over a 5th next year for a 6th. I think that's perfectly fine value. I can't hate that at all, especially to pick Tyler Barron. There was not a ton of edges left on the board at this spot. I think the very back end of the 5th is perfectly fine for Tyler Barron. This is a guy I thought of as a kind of a 4th round guy, maybe a 5th round guy. Absolutely think it's great value getting him here. A full-sized edge at 6'5", 258, 23.5, going to be 24 through the middle of the season, and 8.65 RAS. Was a very, very good tester off the edge. 5.5 sacks, 6 hurries, 11 TFLs, 38 tackles, and 1 forced fumble. Not bad production. Was a 2024 ACC honorable mention in his first year at Miami. He spent his previous 4 years at Tennessee, so you like him having some solid production in his first year in a new environment. Again, not much to say about this pick. Like I said earlier, I wanted them to get someone that compete for the 3rd edge spot. I really like this because I think he does. He's probably going to be that 3rd or 4th edge. I don't think he falls to the 5th edge. I think he's got the juice. I think he's got the talent to compete for that very next rotation outside those top 2 guys. I like this a lot. Like I said, around the value, they needed this. I think he's going to compete for a role. Not an I love it, because it's not like it's an insane value in my opinion, and it's not like he's going to compete to start right away. But again, good value, just absolute solid pick. Kind of falls in with the rest of these picks in this class. Just very, very solid picks overall. Like I said, I like a lot of these guys that they got. Just Azariah Thomas, Arian Smith, a little bit of question on the true value. You could have went with some other bodies, maybe traded back a little bit, got some more picks. You don't have a ton of picks in this class, but I don't hate it at all. And again, a B, 2.9825. Very, very just solid class. Can't complain about it. They hit all their positions in need. They hit all the extra positions that I thought they should target besides IDL. I would have really liked to see them get another IDL to compete in this room. They brought in a lot of kind of wishy-washy Band-Aid free agents to kind of be backups in this room. So would have liked them to see a younger, longer-term option. But besides that, you basically hit every position I wanted you to hit at some point in this class. You targeted tight end and right tackle with your top 2 picks, which I wanted you to do. Either get tackle with 1 and tight end with 2 or 3, or, get tackle with 2 if you really love Tyler Warren, but I would have rather him take Armand Membu. So love that. Again, Armand Membu, an A+. Love it. Don't have any bad things to say. Mason Taylor, a B+. think he's going to be a good tight end. Might be a little bit rough blocking at first, and might be a little bit rough in production depending on how much Justin Fields will target him. But down the road, I think he's going to be a very good player. As of Brian Thomas, concerning to me on the outside, but he's going to a place where I think they're going to be able to use him well and match him up well, especially because they have 2 outside starting guys already. A B for me. Arian Smith, I see the vision, super early for me, but in terms of deep threats, it makes sense. I don't hate it. Malachi Moore, I like it. About his value, I wanted them to get a safety late in this class, so I like it. Francisco Malagoa, going to compete to be their 3rd linebacker, very athletic guy, full-sized. I like it. And then Tyler Barron, I think that was about his range. Comes in, is going to compete for edge 3 or 4, so I like it. Very just solid class. Definition of just a solid class. Not a ton of great values or, like no steals by any means. Some reaches kind of at the end of, or with their early 3rd and with their early 4th, but again, very solid class. Thank you guys. If you made it this far, I really do appreciate it more than you guys will ever know. This series has been doing much better than I thought it would, so I really do appreciate all the clicks, all the people leaving, likes down below or comments letting me know how they agree or disagree. I love to talk about this stuff, so let me know what you think. Let me know where you think I'm wrong, how you view this class and any of the other classes we're going to be talking about. So thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.